did you ever think that we'd see a market that was trading to the upside when missiles started flying between Israel and Iran? That's the question I'm going to pose to Pete on today's Rebels Edge. Bang! All right. Again, SIBO Global Markets. That on that side is Pete Najarian. And Pete, I have to ask you then, if I told you 3 months ago that we wouldn't be talking about tariffs, instead we'd be talking about missiles flying back and forth between Israel and Iran, serious bombings, a lot of people taken out, and the market being up 500 points. Would you have taken that bet?
I'll tell you what, John, the only backdrop that I can throw onto that is Friday. So Friday, the markets got the crap kicked out of them. We were down 700 points, and we were getting, beat up. So I do think it's surprising, though, to see this rapid of a return back, to the positive side as far as like almost wiping out Friday. I think that part's really the stunning part about what we're seeing going on right now. The digestion of information by these markets on a daily basis has become unbelievable. So would I have been able to predict it? I don't think so. But I'm happy to see that the markets are moving the way they are, at least today, to get back some of those losses on Friday. And, our prayers go out to everything going on around the other side of the world. But that's the markets that we're in, and we got to trade the markets with. It's the markets that we have, not the markets we might want. And right now, the markets are actually pretty efficient and doing an amazing job.
I agree. Well, so let's dive right into Macro Minute. We've sort of been on it already, so maybe I'll only make it half a minute. But geopolitical tensions, yeah, we're shrugging them off, folks. And also, we've got a Federal Reserve coming our way, even though they're likely just to pause with rates. This might be the last pause. I think we're getting really close to some cuts, Pete. What do you think?
I think you're right. And I think that there's pressure on. We all know that. We hear it from the president. Now we're starting to hear it from the vice president as well, basically going after Powell saying, hey, look, you said data, we're giving you data, and you're still not doing anything. So I think that's, the big side of this whole thing when you're looking at the macro right now is, how are we digesting this, what's going on with Iran and Israel, of course? That's one. But the other has got to be Powell, and when will they cut?
Yep. Well, so, Pete, I know you're going to talk about a form of volatility probably in the S&P 500. I'm going to talk about the OVX. And if you guys haven't heard about that one before, take a look at this chart. That's the volatility of oil in the United States, not Brent, although they track pretty closely, but that's the volatility of the oil contract. And their Thursday night jump to the upside that continued, even though we pulled back slightly, Pete, it is still higher, that volatility for oil, and we all know why.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's up for those kinds of reasons, John. I mean, this is like looking at the VIX. I mean, it was up for all the right reasons. Now, how high? You never know until you see it. But, we got up to 60 on the VIX. And then we tumbled back down pretty rapidly off of that, just coming down in chunks for a while. And that was interesting. And that's where we've been. So I'm going to hit volatility again, John. And the reason I am is when you go back to Friday, when the markets were reacting to all of the back and forth between Iran and Israel, we hit up around 2150. I was a little surprised we didn't even go much higher than that, quite frankly. I was looking for something that might get us in the mid-20s. We didn't even get close to that. And now I understand why, because look at this massive turnaround that we already talked about in the macro side of things. This turnaround, and for the markets, we're now seeing the volatility index actually get back underneath 19. So last I looked, it was trading in the upper 18s. Pretty damn interesting, John. This is a really interesting one. And we are starting to see a little volatility. The volatility VIX itself, we're starting to see some options trade in there as well. We might have to talk about that tomorrow.
All right. Well, I'm sure the viewers would appreciate that, Pete. Yep. Let's talk about Roku, speaking of appreciating, because shares are appreciating by better than double digits right now. Why? Well, they have an exclusive, and that's a key word here, folks, exclusive partnership with Amazon because the Amazon folks have about 80% of the streaming market ads originate through Amazon. And now with Amazon and Roku together, Pete, along with any Fire device or, Paramount Plus, Pluto TV, Tubi, all these different things, this is pretty huge for Roku. And that's why we're seeing this reaction today from that exclusive deal.
Yeah, that deal is an amazing deal, John, because of the fact that the partnership creates the largest connected to TV that there is in the United States. I mean, it's a big deal. And the fact that Roku's up 10%, I'd actually have expected it to be up a little higher. It's still sitting almost right in between the 52-week low and high, John, of 45 and 105. It's sitting right around 80. I like Roku here. Roku. I love what we're seeing out of this. I think this partnership is something that's really impressive. The fact that they have access now to 80 million households is another thing. Best in class exposure with the advertisers. I think that they should be moving a lot closer. It wouldn't happen in one day, but I do expect to see Roku just keep on chopping wood, John, and getting a lot higher over time. This is one of those where I think even up 10%, I think this is a stock that could easily be up 10%, 10%, 10%. Not in a day, but over the next several weeks, maybe months, and start pushing on that 52-week high.
Well, talk about 52-week highs, Pete. How about this one? X, letter X, not the platform that Elon Musk owns, but rather U.S. Steel. And that is their symbol on the New York Stock Exchange is the letter X. Well, what are they doing? Well, President Trump steps in and he basically says, I'm going to let them merge with Japan's Nippon Steel, one of the most efficient steel makers in the world, only because they got bombed flat in World War II. So all of their furnaces are significantly more efficient than furnaces for places like the United States and U.S. Steel that survived and weren't hit during the war. So it's like a merger of that older tech and new tech. And President Trump basically said, hey, you know what? Give us a bunch of board seats over this, us being the U.S., United States, and we'll approve this because we'll have some control. He called it like a golden ticket or something like that, Pete. But either way, take a look at the move that the stock made from the unusual activity that we had. We had it, folks, when the stock was $45 a share. Today it trades to $55 a share. And that unusual call activity pays off yet again, Pete.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this was a lot of it, I think, a known, John. I think we knew that this was going to eventually get to where it is right now. And I love the fact that they wanted to have these board seats. I mean, that's what this president does bring. You could like him, you could hate him, and I know that he's all over the map for a lot of people, but being the businessman that he is, I think that was absolutely an incredibly smart move to do to get those board seats. And I don't know how many it is. They said several. But, John, this is a stock that's up 61% year to date, 36% in the last month or so. And I know that one of the concerns was national security and the national security agreements that they want to put in place. And that gives them a lot more of that ability to get inside of this whole thing, I think, by being in the board seats that they've got. So I like everything about it. The thing I liked the very most, the unusual option activity that said, hey, this thing's going higher. And it did.
Yep, that paid off yet again, folks. And we've got two more for you just because it's one of those days. This one, UEC. This is Uranium Energy Corp. And of course, we've seen a nice jump out of the stock, which plays right into that unusual activity you're looking at there, folks, because that activity tipped us off that somebody was going to bet that there'd be some positive things happening for UEC. And indeed it did. From the 60s through the 80s, Pete, the United States was the leader in uranium mining, but not anymore. And an awful lot more of it is being purchased from offshore rather than onshore for a whole bunch of reasons. But these guys are a domestic, Pete, and it looks like they want to bring a lot more to market. And so with alternative energies like uranium, which of course is the power behind nuclear, that's a big deal.
I think this whole nuclear space, John, if people haven't embraced it already, they need to. And they have to understand that this is the demand is there. And the fact that the demand's going to only get more and more and more, because we talk about AI, we talk about data centers, we talk about all these various things. And I know we're going to be talking about satellite internet. All of these things are areas of the market that I think are as red hot as they get. And in some cases, this is directly because of the fact that they can use uranium to be able to keep up and to be able to be efficient and also to be pretty damn green, right? I mean, so for all those reasons, I look at UEC and up 9%. I think that entire sector probably has room to go a little bit or maybe even a lot higher, but a little chunk and a little chunk and a little chunk at a time. So it makes for an interesting time, I think, right now with the fact that people have finally really truly embraced the whole world of nuclear. Now there's a lot of ways that they can do it, and this is definitely one of them. And we've been seeing unusual option activity, John, in just about every part of the nuclear world. So this is not a shock to me that it's up 9 or 10% today, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be up, significantly over the next 3 months, 6 months, year.
And remember, folks, you can always go to marketrebellion.com/get started to get free education. We do have a lot of that, folks. We also have coaches, mentors, and a lot of paid educational products to educate you in technical trading, better ways to understand options and so forth, as well as to sign up for exactly the services that are bringing us and our subscribers the activity that we're showing you. And we're going to show you one more because SATS, S-A-T-S, that's EchoStar. Those guys, and ASTS, which is AST Space Mobile, those two are satellite delivery of exactly what Pete said, one of the hottest sectors out there. It's not just SpaceX with Elon Musk. There are competitors out there. They do it differently, and people will choose which product they want. Well, United Airlines, I guess, went with Elon Musk and SpaceX, so they're going to put those dishes. It's not going to be a dish on an airplane. It'll just be a flat thing. But nonetheless, they're going to have satellite-delivered Wi-Fi on the planes for free starting in 2026, and some are even being tested right now. Well, the president stepped in here and said, you know what? I'm tired of the FCC fighting with EchoStar. I'm going to step in and get this thing resolved. And I guess he did, Pete, because the stock jumped dramatically as far as EchoStar. SATS is the symbol, SATS. It was up better than 50%. And that made those options that we were trading, Pete, pretty damn valuable for the unusual option activity.
This was a stock, John, that was in the teens, and now look at it. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Like you just said, at 48, 50% today alone. And then you look over at AST, and that's up 48% year to date. I mean, these are numbers that are mind-boggling, right? I mean, we talked about nuclear. Now we're getting into this whole thing about satellite internet, and that has huge demand as well. And with that demand comes a heck of a lot of money. They're expecting that this industry over the next, call it 5 years, is going to be almost a $25 billion industry. So there is so much going on here, John. It's absolutely incredible. The demand for it is there. I think when you look also, the analysts out there, and, I talk about them negatively a little too often, but, let's get some of that stuff before the actual thing happens, right? But in this particular case, they're kind of doing that, John, because they're talking about how optimistic they are with the outlook of what's going on in this space. And I think that's exactly right. So kudos to them for going in that direction. And I'll tell you what, these numbers are staggering that we are seeing today as far as some of the movement that we're getting out of multiple different either stocks or sectors or whatever. That's what today's market is. And that was something we missed on Friday. But today we're getting a lot of it right now. It's pretty great.
It is pretty great. And again, go to marketrebellion.com/get started. That's marketrebellion.com/get started, folks, to learn more about how you could be following the smart money, which is what Pete and I follow.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a look at a little fun video, Pete. This one's not funny as in ha-ha, but it's pretty damn good, because when you watch what this guy describes about Warner Brothers couldn't have written it any better.
Nope.
Watch this at the U.S. Open.
This is straight out of a movie. Imagine you've never won a major. You lost 40 pounds between 2017 and 2021 to drop
40
all the way to 584
He was old
in the
school.
rankings. Then you
Old
kept
school
losing
golf.
weight and were misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes, only to find out 2 years later it was type 1 instead. And then after overcoming all
How did they
that to
screw
become a
that?
top 25 player. Fast forward to today, on the final day of the U.S. Open on Father's Day. You have to make
That's
a
pretty
3
damn
a.m.
cool.
run to CVS because your daughter's
3
throwing up.
a.m.
And after all that,
Had
with
to run
all
to
the pressure,
CVS.
with everything on the line, you hit this putt to win $4.3 million and
That's
your
awesome.
first ever major and U.S. Open.
That is cool.
Watch how far outside of the hole he is.
Look at that shot. That's why they say
Probability
putt
of
for
making
dough.
that putt was under 2%. Bro hit a 64-foot putt to win the U.S. Open. Not even
Bro.
Warner Brothers could have written this script. And to take it even a step further, this wasn't some easy golf course either. Oakmont is like the toughest course in the world. He was the only player who shot under par. And that's what
only
makes
one under
sports so
par.
great. J.J. Spawn is your U.S. Open champion. You couldn't write a script better than this.
You know,
JJ
John, there are
Spawn,
very few
congratulations.
times that in golf the best of the very best can't shoot under par, for crying out loud. That's why they stopped going to Whistling Straits, I think, because that was a son of a gun of a course. That's where we used to go from the CBOE right behind John there. That was always that trip up north to Wisconsin. Probably one of the toughest courses in the entire country, right, John?
Yeah. I don't even know why people want to be members of Oakmont, Pete, because if it's this frustrating for the best, now granted, the rough isn't 5 inches deep for the regular, for the members of that course, which makes a huge difference, because I saw guys losing their mind trying to hit out of that rough, Pete. And the greens were fast. They call it glass when the greens are like that. And they were fast as heck. Now, granted, they can let it go back to a little bit more normal, but whoever is the club champ at that place, he should be on tour, because that's an amazingly difficult course. But
Yeah.
wow, again, JJ Spawn, congratulations, sir. We salute you.
That is awesome. That is absolutely incredible. All right, John, let's jump to a little bit of sports. We're going to hit the NFL, which we always do because it's NFL is 365 days a year. So who is the Cinderella team for this year, John? Last year, it had to be Washington, right? I mean, the fact that they were 4-13 and 23, you come back last year and they're a 12-5 football team with Jaden McDaniels and Dan Quinn as your quarterback, or excuse me, as your head coach, but you also have a new GM. You had a new everything, quarterback, GM, head coach, everything. And what did they do? They actually delivered. And I think a lot of help of that came from who they drafted, some of the players they got in free agency, all the rest of that put together. They did a great job with the new coaching and everything that went into it. So I've got 3 teams. You can pick out any teams, whether it's the 3 that I'm looking at or 3 or 4 others out there, John, where you're kind of looking, all right, what team was terrible last year that could make a turn in 1 year? Chicago Bears. I'm going to start right there. I mean, you've got
There you go. Stop right
Ben
there.
Johnson. You've got Caleb Williams at quarterback. You got a brand new offensive line that you've rebuilt that looks pretty damn good, which was an offensive line that got him sacked a hell of a lot last year, John. And so I don't think we saw the real Caleb yet, but we will, because that kid is absolutely a great football player. And there's a reason why he's, everybody wanted him as the first pick in the draft. I also look over at the Raiders. They got in Pete Carroll. He is a Raider. He should be a Raider. He's the coach there. He brought along with him Geno Smith, who I think is probably the most underrated quarterback probably in the entire NFL. All he does is win. All he does is play well wherever he is, but he doesn't get a whole lot of accolades. And he's got Ashton Jeanty, John. You and I love that kid. I mean, he was this far away from being the Heisman Trophy winner, and in a lot of people's minds, maybe he should have won it. I mean, I know he didn't go both ways, but that kid's a stud. And then I throw out to you the last one I'll throw, the 49ers, because they stunk last year. But they stunk because they had a lot of injuries, and they had a few guys that were not very happy there. Debo wanted out. They finally got him out. I think Shanahan's a great coach. I think getting Brock Purdy the numbers that he really probably deserved, if you look at the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL, I think he's probably deserving of the numbers that they got him. And then you've got McCaffrey coming back. Ayuk is coming back. Trent Williams is coming back from not very healthy. Ricky Pearsall actually got shot, for God's sakes, and the guy came back, and he's going to be a much better receiver this year. So I think that those three teams are teams that I think people should be on the lookout for, because the NFL is not that far away, John. I mean, now they're still doing OTAs and other things that they do, but we're not far away from training camp right now, and we're less than 100 days from the first game.
Well, what I'm going to say, Pete, is that you're right. You could have stopped with the Bears because I'm going to say Braxton Jones, left tackle, Trevin Jenkins, left guard, Mike Pryor, right guard. I mean, and Darnell Wright, right tackle. The fact that they've revamped the offensive line to keep Caleb Williams safe, like you said, you called it, and you're right. And then you've got DJ Moore at wide receiver, and a couple pretty good players that look like they're going to have breakout years, I think. Mm-hmm. If Caleb has time, Pete, if he's not getting sacked 68 times and so forth, then I think you're going to see a lot different Bears team, because they've always got a good, sometimes great defense. Mm-hmm. What they don't have very often is an offense that can score. This year, I think they're going to have an offense that can score, and I bet Detroit and Green Bay and the Vikings are not happy about it.
No, I agree with you. I think they did a great job on both sides of the ball, but that offensive line is what tipped it for me. All right, next up, NBA. We can always have a lot of fun with the NBA, John, because even though it's 2-2, how about this? The first two games, the ratings were down 24% since in the last three finals together. I mean, that's not so good, right? The lowest viewership since 2007 for a finals. That's not so good. Small market teams, yeah, you can give them that. Silver says that he looks at ratings a totally different way. Well, he ought to, because if he looked at them the real way, he'd find out that they've done a lot of things wrong with the NBA. But that's, a story we've hit a lot. What I wonder about, John, though, is let's go to the, finance and football side of things. How about this? You're looking at Disney. You're looking at Bob Iger. Now, what was Iger thinking about when he gave them this contract, John? Because I think that was negotiated through him. I think he'd been back long enough that it was him that did this. But he gave them an 11-year, $76 billion contract, which is probably why Adam Silver sits there and goes, I can do anything I damn well please. I got this contract from ESPN and ABC and the whole gang, and I've got the money. So, the hell with everybody else. You know what? We got the right thing. Well, they did, but I got to tell you, I think that Bob Iger made a huge mistake, and all you've got to do is look at these ratings and look at some of the numbers to see that. But is it Silver at fault, or maybe he's the fox right now in the hen house stealing all the hens, John? Because I think Bob Iger got taken to the you know what.
Yeah, Iger has done nothing to help that franchise, the Disney franchise, with everything under it, Pete. From ESPN, which is the crown jewel, to Marvel, to Star Wars, to the cartoon thing that they bought. I forget the DreamWorks, Pete. Well, anyway, all of the different things that these guys that he has put together are terrible, terrible. I mean, he practically ruined Marvel by doing movies like the Marvels, or any of these other crazy woke spin-offs that he's done, even for Snow White and things like that. And then to do a $76 billion deal with the NBA when you've got a leader of that, which, as you've said, supports the idea that, these players need to rest, do a little load management. Yep. Well, that'd be like telling the actor, yeah, you don't have to turn it on for this one. By the way, Pete, I did see, it's long as heck, but I saw Mission Impossible 8, The Final Reckoning. It was great, but it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. They could have used a little more judicious editing, I think. But it was very, very good. Cruise is amazing. And I don't know if he's ever done a movie for Disney, Pete. It's almost always Paramount. And there's a reason probably that they give him a little more flexibility and don't get in his way, because Iger, horrible choices he's made. And I think a lot of us realize that's why, instead of when he came back making Disney go up. Disney's just been flat or like this to the downside.
Yep. Leadership there has been gone. And I think early on, Iger did a good job. Not early on this time, but his first time. I think he did a pretty good job. Except he could have bought Netflix. We talked about it on CNBC. I don't know how many freaking times. Buy the damn thing. Buy Netflix. It was like $65 a share back then, John. And they just never pulled the trigger on it. And then they had to do what they did to get themselves into streaming. I'll give you one that we'll do tomorrow for sure. But Ohtani is finally pitching again. And he's pitching today, so it'll be pretty damn interesting what the Dodgers – he hasn't done it since 2023, so we're going to have an opportunity to see old Shohei Ohtani get out there on the mound, John, and start firing it up. And I would say this, if he's ready, he is ready. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has an unbelievable start to his ability to throw, because he's just as good a pitcher as he is a freaking batter, and he's unbelievable at the plate.
He is, Pete, and I can't wait to see some highlights. Hopefully, folks will bring them to you right here on the Rebels Edge. So have a great afternoon. I guess be happy about your stocks that rebounded, and those of you who gave up on them on Friday thinking that, oh, the world's ending. You can only make that bet once and have it be successful, folks. And then who's going to pay off? So keep that in mind. And Pete and I will keep in mind that we will be back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then.